And now, a word from our sponsors.
Back in the summer of 2022, I was struggling. I'd been evicted from my home for the second time in 12 months. I was on the verge of my eventual PTSD diagnosis, and for reasons still somewhat unknown to me, I was marketed the film What is a Woman non-stop. Before I get too far in here, we're filming this the day after London Pride. And no shade to them, it was a lot of fun, but it did end for me when I walked into a class door. That's why my nose looks like this. Is it broken? Don't know. Moving on. What is a Woman was a hit piece created against the transgender community, created by fundamentalist Christian Matt Walsh at the Daily Wire. A film dedicated to highlighting every bias, non-peer-reviewed medical study he could find and present to the viewer as the gospel truth. God bless the internet. The LGBTQ+ community rushed to its own defence upon the film's release, debunking most, if not all, of the film's claims in the days and weeks that followed. The story I'm here to share with you today is not about the Daily Wire, but I'd be lying if I said they weren't its catalyst. My nose hurts.
I imagine it does. You might have to go and get it checked.
Yeah, probably. The trailer for What is a Woman, and its unrelenting appearance in my social feed, became a common joke amongst my friends. Whenever I wanted to take a break from that hellish summer, I'd get unskippable ads for a film that was designed to question my very identity. Fate, it seems, is not without a sense of irony. It wouldn't be a talk from a trans woman without a Matrix quote in there, so there we are. I understand that algorithmically, I'd clearly typed the words transgender and film into YouTube prior to the summer of 2022. Machines and AI not quite being where we all fear they'll get to, I can sort of understand why a computer would think I was the target audience for the film, despite being the target full stop. Similarly, I wonder if Making a Murderer was marketed to convicts. If Three Identical Strangers was marketed to triplets. Or if indeed Blackfish was marketed to orcas. These advertisements didn't inspire me to watch the film, however. Another failure in the battle for AdSense. But it did make me wonder, what's the counter to all this? If that summer proved one thing to me, it's that someone needed to fight back. Earlier that year, I joined the London Transgender meetup group. Having never met another trans person, aside from the girl who cut my hair, 2 years into my own personal transition, I figured it was now time to familiarise myself with the community. To say this decision changed my life would not be hyperbole. It's going to be hard to describe to a largely cisgender audience, but the almost innate comfort that comes from being in a room full of other trans people is such a breath of fresh air compared to every other social interaction I'm faced with. Present company excluded, of course. What I learned very quickly is something that seems obvious in hindsight. Being transgender is one of the smallest things that unites each of the 1,000 members that have joined the group so far. We're told by the right-wing media that being trans is all we amount to, but I've seen for myself that we as a community are made up of every permutation of human that there is. 2 years on, I've made more friends that have become family than I can count. That group saved me, and I do my best to give back whenever and however I can. After attending a few meetings, I turned to my now business partner Ray Lavery, who co-runs the group with me, and said, "You know, this is great, but it'd be really cool if there was an online version. That way if people were hesitant to attend in person or couldn't make it to London for whatever reason, they'd be included too." Ray paused for a moment, and without thinking, he turned to me and said, "Go on then, you do it." So I did. Now, ignoring my background as a semi-professional theatre kid, ask no questions, you'll hear no lies, I hadn't done any form of public speaking for north of a decade, and I'd never run an event of any kind. There's a saying in the gay community that we have what's referred to as the audacity. Case in point, I had the audacity and belief that I could make this work. So, throughout the latter half of 2022, I held a series of Zoom meetups with the group. Knowing what we know already about how my summer was going, I did what I could to bring the group together. It was difficult. I had my own things going on, but it became a great extension of what Ray was already doing with the group. People I met online began showing up for the in-person events and vice versa, including Pride events like the ones we've been celebrating this past month. I wanted to give back to my community. I know there are a lot of trans people in my position that feel the same way. But what I didn't consider was just how much the trans community would give back to me. Winter of 2022, I started to get back on my feet a little. I found a new place, I started going to therapy, and finally, the anti-trans advertisements stopped. Hate has a wonderfully short half-life, to the point where I can almost guarantee that this video right here is the most anyone's talked about the Daily Wire's film in months. On my road to recovery, and in between the meetups, I started to imagine what a response to that film would look like, and whether I was capable of producing it. Once again I spoke to Ray, and we concluded fairly quickly that we wouldn't make a response to that film. You do not fight hate with hate. The way to fight hatred and anger is to show joy and love. Now, I've worked in the film and television industry for well over a decade, once or twice for this very platform, funnily enough. My idea was to make something simple and elegant, something that was unabashedly transgender and something filled with the same happiness I'd seen in my own transition. With this mantra in mind, we very quickly came up with the title, What is Trans Joy?
I think just like normal things, like what normal people enjoy.
My partner. That's the first one, I guess, a given, and probably a bit of a cliche.
What makes me happy? Just being able to live my life to the fullest and confidently and without any barriers as such. Yeah, that's probably it.
Sometimes it's hard to smile, and sometimes it's hard when people are constantly looking at you, and sometimes those looks are not positive.
Knowing that someone out there appreciates you, loves you, and really cares for what you do is amazing. It's, it brings me so much joy.
Living my life as best as I can, striving for happiness in every aspect of my life. For once, choosing to support myself rather than leaving myself last. Letting me be me. Permission.
The shoot was a resounding success. My background as a filmmaker made it a less audacious affair than the meetups. We had incredible support from the Gender Hormone Clinic, thanks especially to Kat Egan for her enduring support. All that being said, when my granddad passed away in the middle of pre-production for the film, his sudden death really threw me for a loop. He's immortalised in a dedication just before the credits roll, if only as an acknowledgement that the film's creation and his passing will always be inexplicably linked to me. It's a strange process to be making a film about joy, while trying to get through the grieving process as best as you can. John Collins was one of the most joyous people I knew. His optimism through good times and bad are qualities I will forever strive to keep in my own life. I love you, Grandad. This project started life as an antidote to online hatred. And I suppose since we're a few days out from its release, its impact is yet to be fully understood. When I first saw the trailer for What is a Woman, I was angry, I was fearful, and I was largely upset. Hate breeds hate. I've learned the hard way a number of times over the years that we can't control how an audience reacts to anything. Try though we might. But I live in hope that seeing an alternate narrative might have a different effect than what we're used to. If hate breeds hate, what does joy breed? I suppose we'll find out. So I gave this speech at Sky Studios last month, and I thought it might be a good forward for the series we're about to release. I'm so happy to finally announce that the first film from the series What is Transgender will release here on YouTube on the 12th of July. It's called What is Transjoy. The films What is Trans Pride and What is Gender Dysphoria will release on the 26th of July and 9th of August respectively. A whole slew of incredibly talented people worked hard on this project, and I'm so proud of not just the films, but the ability to count myself amongst them. I hope you like the series. Do let us know what you think. Subscribe to @transmatters on YouTube for more.